All right, so we're back here on another CU Sunday Conference Championship edition of CU Sunday. Here is down now to the final four of the NFL. So the winners of this week's matchup will will essentially punch their ticket to LA. What's going on, Thad?
What's good, man? Glad to be back on See You Sunday. It's the final 2 weeks of the NFL season, so I had to make another appearance. It'll be pretty sad when this is over with in about 2 weeks, but glad to be back with you for another episode.
Yes, this is what we would consider the penultimate edition of the CU Sunday. One more left in the tank, 2 weeks from today. Yeah, so I know, and like we talked about it, before we went live, how quick these months have. I remember we started this in September. And now started back up for the second season in September, and now you think yourself, wow, we only got one more episode of CU Sunday in 2 weeks. So yeah, the season is here. It's only down to 8. There was optimism for every every team in the NFL when we started on September the 11th, and now it's down to 4. And we're here, and we think to yourself, we had great divisional round last week. Epic did, it's one of those things where, hey, all the games was great. All of them, with exception of the Chiefs and the Bills, was decided by a field goal. So you look at hopefully this weekend can live up to that hype. But hey, we'll see. So before we get started, definitely before we get into the meat of the preview, pause. Your storylines to watch in conference championship weekend. What you got, that?
For the Chiefs and Bengals, for me, I would say, will the dynasty continue? The Chiefs have pretty much dominated the NFL and the AFC for the past couple of years, even though it's only resulted in one Super Bowl. They were the first year they're only one play away or offsides away, and both times they lost was to Brady, the GOAT. So you can't knock them for that. So will the dynasty continue? And for the Rams, I'm kind of looking at, will going into the season, I feel like they had the most pressure, making the move for Matthew Stafford and all the other trades they made. So will Sean McVay's gamble pay off? In LA, they don't believe in draft picks, which is good. You want to get guys that have already performed in the league. You don't want to get a kind of unknown or take a gamble, which they don't like to. They draft well in the later rounds, but Sean McVay and Les Snead like guys that can play immediately and have already had impact in the league. So, will the gamble pay off? Giving up all those draft picks, they do not have first-round draft picks for a while, even second-round picks. They gave up some for Von Miller. So will the gamble pay off? Because for most people, it's kind of Super Bowl or bust. I'm leaning more towards, next year they have to win by next year, but they're already in a conference championship game. So far it's kind of paid off, but, at this level, you only care about getting rings or making it to the Super Bowl. So will the gamble pay off? Will the, giving up all the draft capital for the well-known players and veterans pay off? And so far it has.
Yeah. This it's a lot of storylines in this one. I think about, and it's funny because last week we really talked about like it was more so of revenge games in essence, and we looked at those matchups. Obviously, like we looked at Green Bay, San Francisco. That was a week 3. The Bills and the Chiefs was week 5, and then also Tampa Bay and the Rams were also week 3 as well. But these matchups are very recent in our memory. You think to yourself, obviously week 17, Cincinnati versus Kansas City, that pretty much, I think, in essence, propelled Cincinnati. And a lot of people asked that they are just a contender. We looked at, at that prior to that time, we looked at Cincinnati as a team that was somewhat dangerous, but they were kind of teetering on that. Well, are they even going to win the division? They've been on a roll ever since. We kind of, and it's funny because we talked about that, and we kind of figured that their run at that particular time was going to be over because at that time Joe Burrow was playing his best football up until that point. I think up until like week 14, it's pretty much been full speed ahead. We looked at him at that time was the interception machine, the guy that at the time led the league in interception. So we looked at that as a factor in that week 17, and they showed out improved. And like you said, Kansas City, they're, fourth straight time, hosting the AFC Championship game. So that's another one where you look at, that factor as well. And could they punch their ticket to LA as well? And on the Ram, and then we have the Rams and the 49ers. I call that always the Mike Shanahan Bowl. Yes, my bias is showing. Hey, it is what it is, but it's the Mike Shanahan Bowl with Mike and Cal and Sean. So them battling each other. Can the Rams get this spell of the 6 straight wins? San Francisco having 6 straight wins against the Rams. It's going to be definitely interesting. That's a great storyline to head into it. And then, like you said, the Rams, where, like you said, and I don't I'm like you when it comes to the Rams. Yes, there's pressure, but I still think they would get a pass in the event they do lose tomorrow. But the pressure is on even more in 2022. So I look at that, and then just a simple fact of, hey, if the Rams, they have the ultimate, well, I wouldn't say home field advantage, because obviously it's really going to be a San Francisco situation to a point where they're begging people that, hey, do not sell your tickets.
No tickets.
Don't sell your tickets. But you would assume maybe if they were to advance 2 weeks from now, even though, it's still, even though in fact, even in the Super Bowl, I still think it's going to be more so just having that situation where you're at home, not necessarily saying that you're going to have home field advantage, but everything else as far as the travel and worrying about certain things can kind of be, you really don't, you can sleep in your own bed, even though I think in theory they'll probably have they'll spend the night, they'll get the hotel like a few days maybe beforehand or whatever, but it's the proximity of it, where I think that's kind of one thing too, where I think that having that, that travel could pose as an issue with them. And that was another Week 18 matchup where you look at, where San Francisco was. We was on here 3 weeks ago thinking Cal Shanahan is on a hot seat. Like, it was that bad. Like, it's almost, we thought that, hey, he needed to win that game. But then you got people don't realize there's pressure on San Francisco as well. And I think I kind of failed to talk about this in a few weeks, but we got to think about it. This team was in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And last year, we obviously gave them a pass because pretty much they were depleted injury-wise. So the pressure's on San Francisco as well. This is kind of, hey, they were here 2 years ago, and they were really close to actually winning that game 2 years ago. So the pressure's on for both of those teams. So and I think this is gonna be the weekend. I think these both gonna be great matchups. So Thad, we gotta talk about the AFC Championship. We got the Cincinnati Bengals, our father Cincinnati Bengals, versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Your thoughts on this matchup, Thad?
It's not the matchup I wanted, but I'm okay with it. The matchup we had last week in the divisional round, I prefer to be the AFC Championship, but this isn't too far off. This was a shootout in Week 17. They came down to the wire. That saw the Bengals pull away in a questionable one, because that late clock management on the goal line when they could have just kneeled it out and, kicked the field goal resulted in them trying to go for it and getting bailed out by a couple flags. So that was a very interesting game, but I'm looking forward to another shootout. I think the Chiefs, they're the veteran team. They've been here before. They've literally been here for the last 4 years. So they know what it feels like to play in these type of games. They're at home. They're in their own building. And I know they're licking their chops based off the result of the Week 17 game. They're just going to have to adjust. When Jamar Chase has more receiving yards than Patrick Mahomes has passing yards, that's a problem. He completely dominated the game. Tavarius Ward just, he was probably having nightmares about him. But I'm looking to see what the Chiefs are going to do to adjust, to limit Jamar Chase, because you can't take him out the game. A great receiver like that, you can only limit him. You can't take him completely out the game. And then, they have so many weapons, so like you can only do so much. You can't triple team them, because then you're leaving T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd one-on-one, and those guys are against the Chiefs secondary. If Gabriel Davis can take them apart for 200 yards, what is T. Higgins going to do? Or Tyler Boyd? Tyler Boyd, before T. Higgins and Jamar Chase came along, was going to be their number one receiver. He got extended, all that. So he's not anywhere near like an average receiver or a scrub. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to, stopped him because he took over the game 3rd and 27, just the constant down the field and rat catches. It was just a long day for them. And with Honey Badger out, you see how their secondary suffered last week. I think the Chiefs just need to, they got to, obviously the Titans pressured Joe Burrow last week. In their last meeting, they had 4 sacks, which is okay. But, Joe Burrow's fearless. So you got to do something to take him out of his game. And I really, it's going to be tough. This is 2 high-powered offenses, 2 defenses that are okay. Like, I feel like the Chiefs are going to put up enough points to win, but I'm struggling to figure out how the Chiefs are going to stop, the Bengals at the same time. But I just feel like this game is going to be a little different. The defense is going to play a little bit more inspired because they got shredded last time, especially the secondary. I think they're going to take this personally, and they're going to get after the quarterback. The Melvin Ingram pickup was huge. Chris Jones has been playing lights out. Frank Clark has flashed a little bit llast week as well. And if they can force a few turnovers, along with the young guys, Nick Bolton, who showed up, the rookie from Missouri, they could force a few turnovers. I think that's all you need. I think at the end of the day, Joe Burrow's played great. He's been comeback player of the year, bounce back. He's everything worthy of the number 1 pick, but he's going to have a few costly turnovers that end up deciding the game. Not maybe not on the last drive or in crunch time, but, early on in the game that just ends up being a deciding factor. Because as you see last week, Mahomes is ready to go. He's playing. He's in his bag right now. He's finally learned after all season going against cover 4 and cover 2 to take the check down. He didn't throw a pass over 20 yards all week. He's finally the talent. It was always there, but now him being disciplined enough to have these 15 to 18 play drives is going to make him even more deadlier. And I think that in the first matchup they didn't have any sacks against him. So if you're not going to pressure Patrick Mahomes, I know he's great at improvising, but if you can't get him on the ground and have him flustered and have him leaving the pocket early, it's going to be a long day. And, them being an Arrowhead, if they get down a possession or 2, this game could get ugly. But, the Bengals have held strong all season, so I'm going to give them a shot. But I have the Chiefs winning 38-27 by 11 and, kind of pulling away a little bit towards the end.
Yeah, we're going to say the predictions. Yeah, you good, bro. You good. But almost to echo your sentiments. I think we all know at the end of the day, this is gonna be fireworks, pass offense galore. You're gonna see touchdowns galore. I think it's gonna be, like you said, defense is gonna definitely have to step up on both ends. I'm really key. I think, like you said, we all know that. I'm really curious, like you said, as far as the adjustments. Joe Burrow, I know they're gonna throw the kitchen sink at him. Who's gonna be, like you said, the beneficiary. We look at was really impressed last week of how they stopped Stephon Diggs, but Gabriel Davis had 4 touchdowns in that game. So who is gonna be that? And like you said, even Tyler Boyd is not a scrub. So it's so somebody's gonna be that beneficiary. So somebody potentially could have 200, like what Jamar Chase had, and week 17 have 266 passing yards. Somebody on that receiving core probably more likely could potentially have that. I think Cincinnati, the key for them defensively, I think if they almost similar to what they did last week, you look at guys like Jesse Bates, Mike Hilton, guys who actually made plays and made interceptions against Tennessee last week. I think that's going to be the key. I think, like you said, with Mahomes is Mahomes. Can you force the turnovers? That's the thing, and I think that could be the defining difference in this game. And then also like Eli Apple, and that just that whole secondary. I think they're going to be key with that. And then also just Kansas City. Can they force 9 sacks like Tennessee did last week? So you look at that. Could that be a factor as well with that? And so it's kind of, and it's one of the things where, like you said, the Honey Badger, just want to see if he's going to be able to be effective this week. Obviously, like you said, you could tell a huge difference without him being in that game. Against Buffalo when he left with a concussion. So I just look at this one where it's really going to come down to, in a weird way, it's going to come down to who's going to make that play on defense. So, because we all know it's going to be a shootout. This could be another one where and I'm not saying that it's going to be similar to last week. It could be a poor man's version of it or a middle class version of last week, which last week is an epic classic game. This could be another classic game too. It may not live to the bill next of last week, but I still think it's a game that is going to it's going to be a good game. It's going to come down to the wire. And just it's going to definitely be like you said. I didn't envision this to be an AFC Championship. I definitely think Buffalo and Kansas City would have been the ultimate one, but this could have been like the second place as far as what could I envision, because who would want to go to Tennessee and play the Titans, Titans and the Chiefs this week? Nah, we good. Yeah. We got the second best matchup. So we got to talk about the NFC Championship. We got the San Francisco 49ers heading down south to sunny Southern California, playing their arch nemesis, the LA Rams. There, your thoughts on this matchup?
This is not the matchup I wanted again. I wanted Green Bay and LA, but hey, San Fran did what they had to do. I'm looking forward to this matchup, though. I always love seeing division rivals go at it. Their third time matching up this year, so they know each other well. And their last matchup, the last game of the season, was one of the best games of the season. Well, the best second halves of the season, coming down to OT. But this game, I'm looking to see if, Sean McVay, this is obvious, but can Sean McVay get over the hump? Like we said, he's 0-6 versus one of his, old partners down in Washington. I'm sorry you guys couldn't keep one of them, but it is what it is. But looking to see if he can get over the hump. It's a chess match. I know they're both coaching the same side of the ball, but, when you're running the team, it's two head coaches going at it. What adjustments can the coordinators for each team make, to set the team up for success? So, just looking forward to see what they can do this time around. The first matchup was Odell's first game in LA. They got completely ran off the field. And, in week 18, it looked like they were ready to play, ready to send the Niners home. They're up 17-0, pretty much dominating the game. And then the tides turned. Deebo Samuel looked a little hampered, but knowing him, I know he's going to play, be ready to go. They're going to shoot him up, do whatever they have to do for him to, be ready to go, because he's the X factor. In both meetings this year, he's had over 100 all-purpose yards. They've had no answer for him. Same with, every D coordinator they've pretty much going against. He's a Swiss Army knife. He can pretty much do it all. He can throw it. He can run it. Reminds me of Booby Miles from Friday Night Lights. So, just looking forward to how they can stop him. The big Trent Williams is hampered, but he's ready. He's going to be ready to go. This is his first shot at the Super Bowl. He's only had one or two playoff games in Washington before this. So, and when you're older, these vets they love the playing these late January big time games to potentially get a ring to cement their legacy. But that Rams pass rush scares me. It really does. Von Miller's older, but he showed flashes of younger Von Miller, not all the time, but all you need at the D-line position is 3 or 4 big plays, and that could change the game. A strip sack, a sack here and there. So I'm just interested to see how Jimmy G handles the pressure. Every game this year he's done just enough, but he hasn't won the game for them. He hasn't, that 2-minute drill drive he had against the Rams in Week 18 was a big moment in the season. Can he do that? Can he pull off a drive like that? Can he put a big game together to where he kind of, carries the team? Because he's leaned on the run game, leaned on their defense, because they didn't score a touchdown last week. Like, how do you beat Aaron Rodgers without scoring an offensive touchdown? I would have never, imagined that happening, but it did. So can he step up for San Fran? Can he step up for the team? I know Armstead, Bosa, Arden Key, they got after last week. They gave Aaron Rodgers a tough time. I know they didn't get to him as much as they'd like to, but just getting back there, making the quarterback, maybe potentially look at the line or look down at the line of scrimmage or move off his first read faster than he wants to. It does a little something. So interested to see how that goes, because Whitworth is hampered. He didn't play last week, but his replacement played well. And, just how can they hold up? Because Stafford, every quarterback is good when they're not getting touched, but, everybody's a little different when they're getting hit and put on their back. And in both games, OBJ only had 2 catches for 18 yards. So you got to get him. He's the X factor. You got to get him more involved. I know the Niners are as healthy as they've been all year, but OBJ, when right, is a 1B type receiver, if not a number 1 receiver now. So getting him involved, they have Cam Akers back now that will add a little bit more explosion. So I'm looking for it. I think the Rams will, utilize OBJ and Cam Akers a little more. And then that defense they have is going to get to Jimmy G and force him force him to be human. We know who Jimmy G is. He's a solid quarterback, but this playoffs thus far, he hasn't been impressive. And we know when, if you get bad, Jimmy G can get really bad. So I'm looking forward to the Rams putting together a game plan to get after him and force him into a few costly turnovers. But like I said, this is division rivals going at it. They've seen each other. This is the third time playing, so they know all their tendencies. They've looked at all the film. There's really, at this point on Saturday morning, there's nothing else you can do besides just executing the game plan. There's no more film you need to watch. I think you've seen enough of both teams. So it's about who can go out and execute. And I'll, leave my pick for later. But I think Jimmy G has a rough outing, and I think you know where I'm leaning towards. But what are your thoughts, Coach?
Yeah, just like you said, this is another one where this is another divisional game where it's like one of the things where it may not go to script how we envision like what we've seen in both of those matchups. I look at this 49ers, they're one of those, and it's funny. I even talked about them a few weeks ago. They kind of remind me almost similar to the 2012 Baltimore Ravens, where it's kind of not necessarily as far as the Joe Flacco effectiveness or whatever, but they found ways to win games, and that's one of the things where I look at just even though it's not been pretty, it's not been the most impressive, but they've won. You look at obviously Dallas, where I think they had the commanded 23-7 lead, end up almost losing that lead. And then, like you said, last week, where it was pretty much, that was one of those games where it would have been easy to pack in, because at first I didn't get the game, in theory, came to that block punt with a few minutes left. So it's almost, you think to yourself, okay, well, yeah, Green Bay just gonna hold on to this win. But they fought hard, they made those plays, and then they won. Like you said, they beat Aaron Rodgers and with really no offensive production. It was really more so of a special teams that really came to life in that situation. So that's one of the things where you think to yourself, they can beat you in a multitude of ways. It's kind of like frightening that, like you said, if someone would have told me that San Francisco would have won on the road, Jimmy G didn't score a touchdown, and it was on special teams, I'd have been like, nah, because Aaron Rodgers would have torched them alive. That's the theory. That's the thing with San Francisco. It's impressive because they've won. They scratched and clawed in those victories. And the thing about it, like you say, even and also with Debo's effectiveness, he's one of those guys. Even in that period offensively, he did everything. Even in that Green Bay game, he did as far as running, catching, and then obviously think about the Week 18 matchup where he actually threw a touchdown pass. And then, as far as people talking about, like, as far as Jimmy G, obviously he's been like the kind of the talk of discussion all week. And like you said, he engineered that 2-minute drive that pretty much put him in this position to go to overtime to even be in this spot to make the playoffs. So it's one of the things where, 1 week, hey, he could be effective. The next, he can rely on a multitude of things. And I think that's why San Francisco has been successful. Like, you look at that record, not necessarily saying that Jimmy G has really put, it's always been on his back. No, that team has always been good. They have all different components that can beat you. So that's another thing I think that's key. And then I think it was just him just being there, because, and I know people say, well, the record, whatever, but he wouldn't have he didn't do this with Nick Mullins last year or CJ Beathard. So it's just like, hey, he's there. He's a quarterback. He's a game manager, and you just take it for what it is. And I think Jimmy G understands that. And I don't think he goes outside of himself. Like how, kind of have to go back to the previous one we talked about, like Patrick Mahomes, where now he's finally knows how to play in the confines of the defense, and then of his own, and just knowing it's self-awareness. And I think Jimmy G knows that at this point. Hey, I make critical throws at times. I don't have to rock the boat. I just get us in position to score. Just, dink and dunk, do what I got to do, and rely on that running game, which Elijah Mitchell, I think that could a huge factor in this one. I think in the last couple of games, he's only had like 3.6 yards per carry. So that's kind of one of the things where I think could definitely help them. Trent Williams' health is key. Like he's definitely got to be healthy and effective in this matchup because, like you said, this one he's gonna have to bring his lunch because, I mean that front is very vaunted. And then on the Rams end, Matthew Stafford, I think he just has to limit his turnovers, and I think, and honestly, and that's the thing where if they can get rid of those turnovers, and because that's another one where these teams both have had games where they've had commanding leads and then almost sequestered both of those. And obviously we talked about San Francisco against Dallas, and then now going forward with Tampa Bay and LA, where it was so many unexcusable turnovers. Like the one when your boy fumbled right at halftime, and I'm like, y'all literally could have put the nail in the coffin in this game, and you let this team in. And I'm saying they can't do stuff like this against a San Francisco 49er team. They see blood in the water. They're like a shark. If they see blood in the water, they're gonna attack. That stuff last week, it's not gonna fly against San Francisco. And I think the ultimate matchup is going to be the Sasquatch, your guy, Jalen Ramsey, against Debo. See how he does that, and just see if this pass defense can improve with the Rams. Like they when you think about you got Jalen Ramsey, you sometimes in theory you think to yourself, well, oh yeah, they got to have a great pass defense, but not necessarily. It's kind of deceiving. So. It's going to be I think it's going to be a good matchup. Obviously, I think it's going to be a close game again. Like you said, this is the divisional rivalry. This is a matchup against friends, against proteges. So they know each other in and out. So it's kind of one of those things where it's going to be like a heavyweight fight, and it's going to go down to the final wire. But yeah, it's going to be a good game.
I agree. I think that getting back some guys like Taylor Rapp, he hasn't played this postseason for the Rams, and he's one of their better safeties. So getting guys back at the right time is always key. And like I said, they played each other 3 times, and these guys literally coached together for years, so they know each other's tendencies. When you sit in meeting rooms with a guy and you develop game plans, you start to learn one another and their tendencies and everything they like to do. So not much has changed. It's just the way they run. It might be a little different, but yeah, looking forward to those games.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I wish we had a game today for real.
I do. But two games on Sunday is better than one on one day and one on the other, I think.
That's true, because I'd rather just give me the double header, and I'm so thankful that they do this, and I hope they do this again for the divisional round again, where they had the Sunday primetime game at 6:30. East Coast for East Coast guy, that's the best. It's lovely, like. The game was over at 10 o'clock. Good. I can, still, I can, I don't have to, fall asleep on these games, Yeah. So definitely it's prediction time. So definitely before we get into our predictions, got to give a huge shout out to the good folks at BetUs. Head over to betus.com. Use our promo code off the ball where you'll receive 125% sign up bonus. So think about it like this. If you put 100 in and use our promo code off the ball, they give you $125 as a signing bonus. So head on there to betus.com. Use our promo code off the ball. So Thad, we got the AFC Championship game. We got the Kansas City Chiefs and the Bengals. I know you said your pick, but you'll say it again. Who you got? Who you got winning this game?
I'm going with the Chiefs 38-27. Potentially the Bengals scoring a late touchdown to make it closer than it is, or throwing a late pick 6 for the game to get out of hand. I just think this time the Chiefs defense is going to play a little bit more inspired. They won't let Jamar Chase might go for 100 again, but he's not going to go for 266. And Honey Badger, Nick Bolton, Frank Clark, he's always good for a big postseason moment. One of those 3 guys is going to make a game-changing play and force a timely turnover to have the Chiefs pull away, because I think that Mahomes is ready to go locked in at home, and I think he's going to play a flawless, a turnover-free game. When you play like that, it's hard to beat the Chiefs. You got to be flawless on the other end, and I think the Bengals, their lack of postseason experience comes back to haunt them with a few key turnovers I say in the late second half.
Yeah. And I found it funny. So you had 38-27, right? I kid you not. I got 37-27 Chiefs. And I think that's going to be another one where I think Cincinnati is going to make it interesting. And like I always, and it's funny. I always use this term when it comes because they asked Mike Tomlin one time your thoughts on the Chiefs, and he's like, they're a team that hey, don't blink. And like I always say, we all have been a victim of blinking with the Kansas City Chiefs, and all of a sudden it's just boom. And I think that's what's going to end up happening in this game. I think Cincinnati's going to make it close, and I think it's going to be a good game. But like you said, I think Kansas City is going to pull away late and just and pretty much essentially just put a dag in this team. Even though from a historical standpoint, the Cincinnati Bengals are 0-2. I mean, 2-0 in the conference championship, but that's in the 80s. This is in the 2020s. This is almost 4 decades ago, but. I definitely think that they're going to take care of business. Like you said, I think the defense will be a little bit more inspired. It's something about with Kansas City, their defense rise to the occasion when it's needed in a weird way. Like it's like I almost feel like they got an off and on button because prior to that matchup in week 17, we were like, oh, well, the defense has played a great stretch in the last, I think it was almost about a good month because I know when we played them in October, they kind of struggled. And I know when it went to Tennessee, but like right around like that end of December, November, right around that time, the defense kind of got to a rhythm, got to a groove. And I know we kind of talked about how how they became effective, and now you think to yourself, this might be where they turn the on button and punch their ticket to LA.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got the NFC Championship. We got the LA Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. Who you got?
This is a tough one. It's hard to beat teams, let alone twice in a season, especially 3 times. And I just think the Rams are feeling, they're feeling good. They feel like they let the game get a little too close last week. I feel like they completely dominated that game. And, the way they lost in week 18 to the 49ers kind of rubbed them the wrong way. And, they're itching to be the second team in consecutive years. All this time, we've never had a team host a home Super Bowl, and I have a feeling that we're going to, in back-to-back years have 2 teams from the NFC hosting the Super Bowl. I just think that Jimmy G's – I'm not saying luck because he's doing what he has to do. His luck runs out, They finally have to depend on him to play his best game, throw for more than 150 yards. And I think, putting the ball in his hands a little bit too much is going to cause for him to have a timely turnover. Taylor Rapp coming back is going to be huge. The defense is just going to – Raheem Morris is going to have those guys, on his heels all day, having Jimmy G having to get the ball out quicker than he wants to. And I just have a feeling that Kyle Shanahan's great in the run game, setting up run schemes, zone run schemes, and all that. But I just think they have a tough time establishing the run game. So they're going to have to lean on Jimmy G in the air a little more, and they potentially get down, early like 7 or 10, and it might just be a little bit too much, San Francisco's had a great season. Shout out to Jimmy G. They gave up on him. They drafted a guy to replace him, and now they're a game away from the Super Bowl. But I think that, this little storybook ending it's over with. And I think that the Rams, in a close one, are going to be heading to the Super Bowl. I'm going to go – I want to say it's going to be low scoring, but it's in L.A. It's inside. I just feel like they put on a show, the way this season's going. So I'm going to go 27-23 L.A.
Okay. Yeah, and give me the Rams in this one too, where and people say, yeah, the 6, they won 6 straight, throw it out the window. We all have had situations where, hey, a team has beat us 6, 10 times in a row, or we've been the one that, the streak is going to end eventually. And I think this is going to be this is going to be the day. I think the Rams will take care of business. Actually, I got them win at 31-24 in overtime. I think this game will go to overtime, and I think Matthew Stafford is going to get his revenge. Like you said, this will be another one where, a team will, we have the Rams will be hosting the Super Bowl, and they'll be actually in it. So it's just one of the things where, hey, it's you build it, and hey, host a Super Bowl, and and to think they will host a conference championship game and a Super Bowl, which would be crazy. So this would be a perfect opportunity for them, and this poor Chargers. Because like if this happened, like the Chargers are gonna be punching themselves, punching air. Like, bro, like really?
It is what it is in their own building. I think though that in this game, there's always a breakout performer, but I'm going to be a little biased. I think Odell has a 100-yard game. I think they focus on taking away Cooper Kupp like they did Devontae last week, even though he had 9 catches for like 90 yards. After that first drive, they kind of really took him out of the picture in the game plan. So I'm looking for OBJ to have a big day.
Yeah, and like you said, and that's another one where you think to yourself like, and it's funny because I think we talked about him maybe a few weeks ago. We were talking about like the X Factor. It's crazy to think that we would think in theory that Odell would be an X Factor. Like as far as just a simple fact of he's good. So it's almost like I'm telling you, being in Cleveland, it you become the main man to now. We look at you as an X Factor, which we know you. We got you to that level, but I definitely think the Rams take care of business. And of course, and staying with my 10 toes down prediction of the Rams and the Chiefs being in the Super Bowl. So hey, why not go for it?
Yeah.
Even though I had the Ravens in the AFC Championship game, though, so I'm not the, but hey, it is.
Injuries can mess up a season. So
yeah, and failing on 2-point conversions.
Yeah, on multiple occasions.
Big time. So we'll put a bow on this week. See you Sunday. So Thad, final thoughts, social media, anything you got going on?
Final thoughts, man. Just a great NFL season overall. Even though my team was garbage, I love football. I love Sundays. I enjoyed it. It goes by way too fast, in my opinion. But the draft's right around the corner, so looking forward to that. But you can find me on What the Game Means to Me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We post episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so you can find us there. And shout out to Off the Ball Network for giving us a platform to speak, and shout out to Couch for hosting. See you Sunday all year pretty much. So we got one more Sunday to go. So looking forward to the games tomorrow and recapping them next week or in 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Another great show. Like you said, that it's good. Like, the season is over. I mean, we're like 2 weeks away from everybody being undefeated. This, like, to me, after the Super Bowl is always the euphoria getting ready for the next year. And as far as the optimism and hope kind of, you spend more time being having optimism than actually playing the season out and actually everything going and being in despair. But Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, on the Couch Coach Live. Check us out anywhere. Get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, you name it, we're there. Also, definitely huge shout out to, I gotta give a huge shout out to Built Bar. Head over to built.com. Also use our promo code Off the Ball. Get yourself a 10% off discount. Get yourself some nice, tasty protein bars. I ended up getting the cookies and cream. So cookies and cream was all right. They was decent. It was good. I had always pack those. If I'm in and out, give me a nice little healthy snack. You ain't trying to get all those Reese cups and all that. You don't need all that at this point. Too much of that. But so like you said, that we'll be back 2 weeks from today on February the 12th, aka I call it Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
It's Christmas Eve for us guys, us football guys, on February the 12th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this has been this week's See You Sunday. Definitely looking forward to Conference Championship weekend, and we out.